All right, welcome back to another of my favorite games from the North American Youth Championships with round 6. For this round, there were quite a few very interesting, enterprising games. Many of them actually went really long, so I decided to choose a shorter game, of course, because um, I try to not to make these videos too long, but I also want to have some learning idea. And I felt that this game played between Alvin Liu and Bakish Ugur brought in a beautiful kingside attack that I hope you guys enjoyed. Finished with a beautiful mate as well, and um, you know today was a day where I felt more aggressive. So we're gonna go for this game. So we had an Italian here. Bishop c5, c3, knight knight f6, d3. So gioco pianissimo. Castle, bishop b3, d6, h3. Everything quite theoretical. It's actually quite nice to kind of share this story a bit, because I remember that I played against someone at some point. I castled, and I believe they castled too, and I played d6, and they went for something like knight d2, and I had played a6. They went here, and I went bishop a7, and it is in this moment that you know that there won't be anything coming in with tempo against you. So you're actually threatening knight a5, and I remember my opponent had forgotten about it and somehow played h3, or maybe it was the other way around. He played h3 first, then rook e1. So I got the chance to take the bishop. So whenever you're playing these things where you take the bishop out, just make sure with white that you're knowledgeable about the fact that you need to keep your bishop. So you put it in c4, you play c3, you get the bishop back. So whenever it's attacked, you can go to c2. And, the bishop in c2 looks sad, temporary, but don't forget, the whole point is eventually you will prepare to play d4. You just can't do it right now because the e4 pawn might be hanging, but, you will do it eventually. So everything is quite natural and theoretical. After bishop e6, bishop c2, also normal. I've seen bishop takes in many of my students' games, but I don't really recommend for white to do that. You really want to keep that bishop to be able to get like a small edge later on in the game. So bishop c2, bishop b6, castle, and knight e7. Black is bringing the knight towards this other side of the board, potentially for keeping the king safe or attacking. And white played this move a4, threatening a5, b4 to trap the bishop. So of course a6 or a5 are going to be black's continuation, and now rook e1. Rook e1 is a prophylactic idea that allows the knight to come to f1 followed by knight g3, and it will give white some future in attacking on the king side. Now c5 was somewhat surprising to me, though that is a typical move black plays in some lines that tries to stop the move d4. But I was a bit surprised by it. I mean, I could consider c6 and attempting d5 at some point with black. Also, maybe knight g6 would have made some sense, but black chose to go for c5. The continuation seems normal. Knight f1, h6. Now, h6 is a bit unusual at this point, I thought, because there's no pin that's going to happen. We don't need to be that worried about knight g5. So I thought the whole idea for black is that at some point they have this break. So they can go knight there, maybe bring the rooks on the file, maybe even ideas with knight h5, but be mindful about the potential discovery. But something like this is what I was thinking. But okay, h6 is not a bad move, just maybe not necessary. So after knight g3, rook c8 was played. Now in this position, once again, I would have liked to see something like this. In a way, a bit of copycat, but when you take the knight away from the center, at least I think you should bring it to the other side to put more pressure. Here after rook c8, knight h4, white follows this typical plan that brings pieces toward the king side, and black kind of went away from the king side, queen f3, and from here the mistakes started coming from black. I think black wasn't quite sure what they were meant to do necessarily, like, or they weren't sure if they could prepare to play d5 or how to do it and when to do it, you know. I don't think they should do it just yet. Maybe they weren't sure, should they play c4? Also, this probably wouldn't help, because I think some knight f5 is happening. Or actually, right now we have a threat, my bad. We have a threat to take in h6. So I think basically what happened is black didn't quite see the threat, which was queen takes f6 and bishop takes h6 and queen takes f6, and that wins a pawn. And also, it just based on the way the moves were made, I think he wasn't quite sure about the plan. Gotta be mindful when you're playing things that are quite symmetrical in a way. You need to know what your plan is, otherwise you just make moves without something concrete while the opponent has something, and you can miss small tactics along the way. This is the first miss that black had, queen d7, and he gets into a really, really bad position. So now maybe knight h7 could at least save him, but definitely like these past few moves just don't really help black that much. So after rook f2 d8, queen f3, queen d7 was played, allowed bishop h6, and now black thought maybe that's not that bad, I can take in e4, and when you take back, I'll get the bishop, I got the material, didn't lose anything, I'm all good. But are you really? The answer is no. Because you see how black's pieces are kind of restricting the queen from coming back, the rook moved away. Most of black's pieces are towards the queen side, while white has the two knights right here, right? The two knights, the queen, and this g7 pawn has disappeared. And black also stands on this check queen idea. So immediately white took advantage of that by playing knight h5. And the problem is you're not ready to defend those squares that are weak. Queen c6 was played, and now after queen f6, this mate is kind of hard to stop. Black attempted king f8, but after queen takes h6, queen g7 worked just as well. He resigned, as after king e8, we get this nice knight mate. So once again, I chose this game because I felt that it is important to be aware of our plans and also be aware of what the opponent may want to do. Being familiar with some tactical ideas in the opening we play, especially if there's some potential attack, is very important. So hopefully this is you know, a game that will suggest some of you ideas on how you can improve to know beyond the opening, not just the opening, but know plans and know how to approach the position. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in my next